Hi everyone, it's Mystery Monday and I'm Sarah Altair, mystery writer, and this is where we talk about writing mysteries. It's specific to writing mysteries. Today I want to talk about subplots, but before I get started, I just I'm currently reading Chris Fox's Plot Gardening, and I really recommend it. He really creates a balance between what we would call outlining and giving yourself creative freedom as you are writing your story. So, highly recommend it. But one of the things that's not in here is a real discussion about subplots. And subplots can add to your story and deepen your characters, your main character, your detective. So let's take a look at subplots. Let's see. Subplots also test your detective's motivation and ability to solve the problem because they throw up obstacles or they get him distracted from his main goal. And they also can present different points of view on the central murder victim and the suspects, just because there's this added dimension to your story. So, in a mystery, the subplots enhance the detective and often lead her down false trails that prevent her from finding the murderer. So you want to keep those readers turning their pages, but you want to keep them focused on your mystery, solving the crime. So let's take a look at different kinds of subplots. For mysteries, there are really two main categories of subplots. I call them the affinity subplots and the opposition subplots. So affinity subplots are stories within the story that involve the detective in a positive relationship. So as well as the traditional love interest, other positive subplots can include friendship, mentoring young people, often as a love interest between two adults, and even relationships with animals. So anything that where there's a relationship, a positive relationship with your detective. And then the opposition subplots are just the opposite. They create arcs that involve opposition to the detective. So it could be a jealous cohort, a corrupt boss, political conflict, even things like riots or acts of God like earthquakes, or giant storms, and other outside influences that distract and thwart the detective from solving the mystery. So in a mystery, readers want to enjoy solving the puzzle. That's why they're there. They want to go along with your protagonist and see if they can figure out the mystery before he or she does. So your subplots are like minor additions to the overall story, and you want to keep that balance in mind when you're writing your mystery. Novice writers should have no more than 2 subplots, and if it's your very first time writing, I would suggest just creating 1. I'll talk a little bit more about why in a minute. So as you're planning your story, outline the subplot from beginning to end, just the way you outline your main story. So whatever you use, your subplot is a mini story within your main story. So give it a beginning, a middle, and an end, and with the plot points or beats within that story, depending on what structure you're using to develop your story. Your subplot is simpler. It doesn't have to be as complicated as your main story, and it's going to have fewer steps to resolution than your main story. So after you've written out the main storyline of your subplot, then look at your main story outline and position the episodes of your subplot within the main story outline. The main action of the subplots will take place in Act 2. This is a general guideline, and unless you're really skilled at craft, I suggest that you just don't even introduce your subplot until you've done the whole setup and the inciting incident and moved your detective into the current case before you introduce any subplots. So they're going to begin and end within Act 2. Every once in a while, say with a love interest, there may be some conclusion at the very end of your story with that subplot, but you need to focus your main action of your subplot within Act 2. So that means, again, I just want to stress this, the beginning and the end are within Act 2 of your story, because the main story takes precedence. And, readers have certain tropes that they expect in a mystery, and those are the main points that you want to keep in your mystery. So your subplot, you want to handle it with kid gloves. Especially for beginning writers, they can take you down a long trail that leads away from the main story. So it's best to handle them with a light and gentle touch. Don't make them too complicated. I'm just going to illustrate some point about your main character, either a major frustration or a major something good about your detective that you can enhance in your subplot. But this is one of those times when keeping it simple really works. All right, and then there's a great quote from Robert McKee in his book Story, so I wanted to read it to you. If a subplot doesn't thematically contradict or resonate the controlling idea of the main plot, and if it doesn't set up the introduction of the main plot's inciting incident or complicate the action of the main plot, if it merely runs alongside, it will split the story down the middle and destroy the effect. So you want to be very, very gentle with your subplots. And for mystery writers, there is a safety valve for new writers. And so learning to create and use subplots is part of the craft of writing. And as you develop your craft, you're going to get more skilled at weaving your subplots into your main story. And you're going to drive the main plot by adding breadth to the characters and intrigue to the storyline. Somebody who does this really well, a writer, is Joe Nesbo. And in his story, The Sun, he introduces everything at the beginning of the story. All the main characters are there. You don't know they are until you get into the story. And that is a real skill at craft. So you may want to take a look at The Sun by Joe Nesmo to get a sense of how everything gets interwoven. But I'm telling you, for beginning writers, it's really, really tough to do. And so stick to your one plot by going deeper into your detective, adding conflict that exposes his flaws or his strengths. And your subplot can also give readers insight into your detective's motivation for solving the crime. So choose one aspect and develop your subplot, and then add your subplot scenes into the main story sequence. And you'll find that pre-planning will really help you, really help you get all these elements together in a balanced way that keeps the reader turning those pages and makes your story fluid from top to bottom. Okay, so whoa, I had no questions this week, so I can't answer any if you don't send them to me. So I really encourage you to send me your questions. Post questions in the comments on Facebook or YouTube, and I'll get you the answers if you're struggling with writing your mystery. And I am still working on course, Write a Killer Mystery, and it should be ready in July, so keep you posted on that. And I really want to thank you for being here, and I will see you next Monday.